for this talk today. As Lewis said, my name is Nikki. I am the UK Parliament's Outreach Officer in the East of England. So basically what that means is my job is to go into schools and I meet with community groups, usually in person, but at the moment online, like everything in our lives. And I talk to people about Parliament. So who it is, what it does, but most importantly, how you can get involved. So that's exactly what we're going to be doing for the next kind of 45 minutes today. As Lewis said, doing the session with me today is my colleague Sky, so I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, my name is Sky. I am one of the outreach managers, so I look after Nikki, and I think there's 12 of us now, and we're based all over the UK, and it's my job to kind of help the outreach officers reach all the different people across the UK. I have quite a long history with students' unions, having been one what seems like a very long time ago, and working as a staff member in a students' union. So please do ask us all the questions. Like, I've got both good knowledge of students' unions, but Nikki's got brilliant knowledge of like Parliament, and between us we'll be able to help you kind of get ready for the year ahead. So yeah.
So our session today is kind of split into two parts. So the first part, we're just going to kind of think about Parliament itself, who works there and what it does. And then the main focus is how you can get involved. So if you want to campaign, how you can find allies at Parliament, and what you can ask them to do. So just to echo what Sky said, please do ask us questions as we go throughout the session today. And this is why we're here. This is our job. We don't know what you know. We don't know what you want to know unless you ask us. And we will be asking you some questions as we go throughout the session as well, so you can get your own back and ask us them. And we're going to use the chat box to do this. So please do get involved. There really are no questions that are too big or too small. The only slight caveat, I suppose I should add to that, is me and Sky are politically neutral. So we can't answer any questions on like party political views, but if you have questions about how Parliament works, that's why we're here. So as a kind of basic then, Parliament, the UK Parliament, is made up of two houses. So the House of Lords, and if you work in the House of Lords, you are a Lord or a Baroness. And then we have the House of Commons, and if you work in the House of Commons, you are an MP, a Member of Parliament. And the job of Parliament is twofold. So its kind of main job is to legislate, so to pass the laws that we follow. And its second job is to scrutinise and check the work of the government. So Parliament is the House of Lords, Lords and Baronesses, MPs in the House of Commons, and it makes new laws. So we'll start by thinking about the House of Lords. And I have our first quiz question for you today. So you can put your answers in the chat box. So how do you become a member of the House of Lords? Do you A, inherit a title from your family? B, are you chosen for being an expert? C, are you a bishop in the Church of England? Or D, can it be any of those ways? So take a guess, A, B, C, or D in the chat box. You have a 1 in 4 chance of being right. So what do you think it could be?
Quite a few answers coming in. We got Dia saying D, Meg D, Laura D, Bradley D, Debbie D. So lots of D's there.
Brilliant. You're working out that this isn't going to be a particularly challenging quiz, hopefully. So you are all right. So there are 3 different ways that you can become a member of the House of Lords. So we have 92 hereditary peers, so 92 who have inherited that title from their family and sit in the House of Lords. And we have 26 most senior bishops and archbishops from the Church of England automatically work in the House of Lords. And this is quite a unique thing. I think the only other parliament in the world that has people of religion automatically put into it is in Iran. So it's quite a unique thing to this parliament. But most of the members of the House of Lords are called life peers, and they're people who are chosen for being experts. So most of them are in there for that reason. So that's how you become a member of the House of Lords. Most of them are experts. But what is the role of the House of Lords? So again, have a little think, put your answers in the chat box. Do they A, make new laws? B, scrutinise, so check the work of the government? C, debate important issues? Or D, all of the above? So what do you think? Pop your answers in the chat box. Okay. So you have a D, lots of Ds coming in from everyone. Yeah, you're all right. So you're going to work out, there's always a pattern to these questions. So you're all right, those of you that put D. The House of Lords have three main jobs. So they, along with the House of Commons, make the laws that we follow. They ask questions to the government, challenge them, and they also just have general debates about kind of things that are going on in the country or across the world. So this is the House of Lords here. You might recognise it. There are around 800 lords and baronesses. It isn't a fixed number. It can get bigger, can get smaller, tends to get bigger. If you're thinking about campaigning, then the House of Lords are a really good bunch of people to work with, because they spend kind of much more time actually than the MPs in the House of Commons doing kind of detailed line-by-line readings through bills, and a bill is an idea for a law. So if actually it's something that you want to campaign about, you want to change, is a change in legislation, then they're a really good group of people to work with. They also tend to be a little bit more rebellious than the House of Commons, for a couple of reasons. One, that when you become a member of the House of Lords, you keep that kind of job title for life. So you don't kind of have to worry about not being re-elected or selected again. Also, there's kind of many more independent people in the House of Lords. So this group of people here are called crossbenchers, because they literally sit in the benches that go across the room, and they aren't in any political party, so they tend to be more rebellious against the government. So I'm going to pause to see if you have any questions. What would you like to know about the House of Lords? So remember, they are experts who help improve the legislation. Is there anything anyone would like to know?
So Meg has asked how, Meg, is that who do you know is in the House of Lords, or how do you know is in the House of Lords? Sorry, who do you know is in the House of Lords? So Nikki, you can name your favourite lord if you want.
My favourite lord. Oh,
we're not meant to have favourites, but just someone that we know.
I really like is the person. So you can just see her in this picture here, Floella Benjamin. So I like her because she used to be a children's TV presenter. So she used to be on Playdays, which is quite fun because I think it highlights that there's quite a range of backgrounds of people who work in there. And you can find out who works in there on the Parliament website, and I'll show you later on how you can find members of the House of Lords as well. That's a good question.
I have to say that I've got a real mixture of people in the House of Lords that I like to refer to. There's people in the House of Lords who, the man who created the Big Issue is a member of the House of Lords, and he actually holds no formal qualifications, which is a really lovely way of kind of showing that the House of Lords is quite a diverse place. Shami Chakrabarti is a baroness, as well as and a human rights kind of expert. Ruth Hunt, who used to be the chief executive of Stonewall, the LGBT charity, is also in the House of Lords. So yeah, really diverse range of people there.
Yeah, so I think that's why they're a really good group of people to work with, because they do have experience, as Skye said, in lots of different areas. So that's the House of Lords, our experts. Let's have a little think about the House of Commons. So what is the job of a member of Parliament, an MP? So A, do they make new laws? B, scrutinise, check the work of the government? C, represent their constituents, so talk on your behalf. Or D, all of the above. So what do you think? Pop your ideas in the chat box.
Got a couple of answers flying in. We've got Laura, who's gone D, Bradley D, Debbie D, Meg D, Cooper D, Joanna D. It's like they're discovering your secret plan there, Nikki.
I know, like I'm trying to lead you all to the answers. Hopefully you probably all knew it anyway. So you're right. MPs kind of broadly have 3 jobs. So the first two same as the House of Lords. They make new laws. They scrutinise the government. But the main difference between the House of Commons and the House of Lords is that our MPs represent us. So they talk on our behalf in the House of Commons about things that are important to us. Because we elect them, the House of Lords don't do that. We don't have any say in who works in the House of Lords, so they don't represent us.
I mean, I guess there it's interesting to say about the House of Lords that the people can nominate a Lord. And that's one of the ways you can become a Lord. So, but they don't have to be accountable back, is probably the slight difference there.
Yeah, so yeah, when you're 21, you can nominate yourself or someone else. So if all of you are over that age, then bear it in mind. If you think actually you have experience that you could add, or you know someone else who you think will be good. And Skye mentioned Lord Bird, the founder of The Big Issue. So he was somebody who nominated himself because he said, you know, you need someone in the House of Lords who has that first-hand experience of what it's like to be homeless. So that's how he got in there. So this is House of Commons. Hopefully you'll recognise it. There are 650 MPs from across the whole of the UK. Looking at our picture, everyone who sits on the left-hand side will be part of the biggest political party that forms the government. And then the opposition parties literally sit opposite on the other side. So Labour, the SNP, Greens, Lib Dems, and everyone else. So any questions about the House of Commons or MPs? What would you like to know about them? Anything that you see in this picture that you're wondering what is there, why it's there? No questions at the moment?
No questions at the minute.
That's okay. If anything comes to you kind of as we're going through, then please just pop them in.
Debbie has asked us a question. Debbie has said, what is the table in the middle?
Yeah, good question. So this table here, it's kind of got a few different sort of features on it. So you can just about see there's a long kind of gold stick here. So that is the mace, and the mace represents the Queen's authority at Parliament. So the Queen is kind of technically the third part of Parliament. She doesn't have a massive role other than signing a bill. And when she signs a bill, it's called giving royal assent, and it turns it into an official act of Parliament, an official law. But this mace has to be present in order for the MPs to actually debate. And there's one in the House of Lords as well. So you can YouTube after this. There's been times when some MPs haven't liked the way debates are going, and they've tried to pick the mace up and walk out with it. And they've been very quickly stopped by the Sergeant at Arms, who's the person in charge of security in there.
2 more questions for you.
Yeah.
We'll start with one from Laura, which is, what is the role of the Speaker of the House?
Yeah, great question. So the Speaker sits in this chair here, in the middle of the room. So the Speaker is kind of like a teacher at school, I would say. The Speaker is in charge of behaviour. So the Speaker at the moment is somebody called Lindsay Hoyle. He's an MP. And his job, he's the one that will shout out order, order if people are misbehaving. But also he will choose which MP speaks next in the debate. So if you ever kind of see the MP standing up and sitting down, they're doing that because they want to talk. But he kind of has a kind of wider role in deciding when the House of Commons are looking at legislation, and MPs can table amendments, so changes to bills. He'll pick which ones will get debated and voted on. And he'll also kind of his team decide kind of the order for debates, not for question time, but for debates, the order in which people will talk as well. So it is quite a powerful role. The other thing I'll just add about him is that he is independent. So on becoming Speaker, you give up your party affiliation for life. And that's so you can never be accused of being biased and kind of favouring one party over the other.
Cool. And then there's one more question from R, and if it's all right with you, Nikki, I'd like to answer this one. So R's asked, many MPs don't respond to their constituents. Is there a way to get them to engage with their constituents who wish to be represented? And we're going to talk a bit about this later, but one of the really interesting things I've kind of discovered working at Parliament is an MP has to represent, well, is elected by their constituents, and it is their job to listen to their constituents, and it's really difficult for them because do they go with a majority of their constituents who's writing them lots of letters, maybe using websites where it's just, you know, put your name in and you get a very standardized letter, but we're going to go into a bit more detail about how some clever ways of campaigning and getting MPs' attention on the issues that matter to you. But we'll go into that in a bit later. But it's just something to be aware of, and also thinking about your roles as student union officers. Like how are you a good representative? It's quite a philosophical question there.
So House of Commons, then, the MPs who we elect. So one final question for you that I have, and hopefully you know that's this one because I've kind of alluded to it. Parliament and government are the same thing. Is that true or is that false? Answers in the chat box.
We've got Benjamin saying B, lots of B's from Meg and Debbie. Dia saying B.
Brilliant.
Oh, some strong, lots of B's. I can't see an A so far.
Well, you're all much cleverer than me because before I started at Parliament, I thought they were the same thing. Those words are kind of often used interchangeably. So good knowledge. So Parliament, as we've kind of already spoken about, it's all 800 lords and baronesses. It's all 650 MPs from all of the different political parties that are represented. Government is taken from Parliament, and government is made up of mainly MPs, but some lords and baronesses from the biggest political party. So there's around 120 people in the government, and Parliament is around kind of 1,500-ish. So we know biggest political party at the moment is the Conservative Party. The leader of that party becomes the Prime Minister, who is Boris Johnson. And the job of government is to actually run the country. So they come up with ideas for laws, and then Parliament will debate and pass those laws. Government will decide what our taxes get spent on. So if we think kind of at the moment, are our taxes spent on, you know, university fees? Are they spent on putting more money into the NHS or police? And they run our public services, so things like the NHS, the police as well. So, for example, there's different government departments, so like the Department of Education, which is in charge of schools, curriculum. Within that, there's the Universities Minister, Michelle Donnellan. Now, I don't know if we have anyone here from Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland. If we do, within your kind of your own governments in those countries will have your own university minister, because education is a devolved issue. So what that means is like each country in the UK independently kind of makes decisions on it. So that's why like it's free to go to university in Scotland, not here. So Parliament are the House of Lords, the House of Commons. They make new laws and they scrutinise, check the work of the government. Government is MPs, lords and baronesses from the biggest political party, and they run government departments and run the country. So, do you have any kind of final questions at this point about Parliament or government? Anything else you want to know just before we move on to thinking about how you can campaign?
No questions so far. Just waiting to see. Government, so a way to think of it is Parliament is everyone from the Commons, regardless of their party, and everyone in the Lords. And government is only, I think it's 121 people who are all Conservative from the party that won the election.
If you're quite a visual person, think of government as Downing Street, and Parliament as the Houses of Parliament, that building as well. Cool. All right, so that's Parliament and government then. Parliament MPs, Lords and Baronesses, make laws, check the work of the government. The government runs the country. So let's move on now to kind of, I guess, the most important part of our workshop, which is thinking about how you can get involved and how you can have your say. So maybe you might want to share this in the chat box. There might be things that you are important to you. So it might be at your students' union, students in general, in the place that you live across the country, things that you know you want to change or improve, things that you would like to campaign on. So you can share those in the chat box kind of as we go along. It might be that actually through doing that, you find some allies, some people who agree with you. Because campaigning is all about, I guess, identifying something that's a problem, but then thinking about a solution for it. So today we're kind of specifically thinking about how you can work with Parliament and what you can ask them to do. So as Skye has already mentioned, always your first port of call should be your local MP. So your local MP are there to represent you, they're there to talk on your behalf, whether you voted for them or not, whether you're eligible to vote for them or not. And your local MP can help you with things like if it's a government issue, so something the government is in charge of, so that might be universities, it might be something to do with the NHS or benefits, universal credit. Sometimes if it's a local issue as well, it might be something that the local council is in charge of, but they can kind of lend their voice to. Or if you just kind of want general support for your campaign and you want them to add their names to it. So your MP is there to talk on your behalf. Now, I wonder, does everybody know who their MP is? If you do you want to share it in the chat box if you're willing to? You don't have to, but do share it if you know. If you're not sure, then you can have a look on the Parliament website. So if you just go parliament.uk/MPs, I think it is, type your postcode in and you can find out who your MP is there. So Skye, do we have anyone sharing their MPs?
Yes, so we have Robin Walker for Meg Price, Debbie has Alison McGovern, Craig Tracy. Yeah, so I'm guessing these will be your Carl McCartney, Bradley's put in. I'm guessing these are the ones where when you're living really close. Oh, Laura's made a good point there. Jonathan Ashworth in Leicester, and Kevin Hollinrake at home. So that's a really good point that as students, you will be able to have two MPs. You've got your one where if you are living away from home, that is your university MP and they will represent you, but you can also contact your home MP. So I went to university in London, so actually I kept mostly the same MP when I was at university. Emily Long says Daniel Zeichner, who is the MP for Cambridge, or one of the MPs for Cambridge, I must say. Yeah.
I always feel like this is a test for me because I'm always trying in my head, like, see if I know where they are.
Yeah, so I know a couple of the names, but there are 650. It's hard to know. I guess it'd be nice to know, have you guys contacted your MPs on issues? Have you spoken to them before? My MP changed at the last election, but my old MP used to get a lot of emails from me about various things in my local area. Yeah, because it is really interesting if you have an experience, both positive and negative. You know, have you contacted your MP?
So yeah, I think it's really important just to share these experiences with each other and find kind of how you found doing it, because I think if you haven't done it before, it can be, I think, quite a scary thing to kind of first make that first contact. But when you go on the Parliament website, you'll find all of their contact details on there, and you can ring your MP up, you can email them, and often they'll hold surgeries. So obviously at the moment, each local MP will be doing that differently, but there are lots of different ways to get in contact.
We've got lots of people contacting their MPs about things like Black Lives Matter and Grenfell's 3rd anniversary, about the government's update. Benjamin said once, got no response. Emily Long says lots of links with MPs. We did a rent survey and report on private renting. Yeah, so lots of good things here going on. Let's keep going, and we'll come back to. So Meg's asked, how do you continue to chase MPs?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. So MPs can get about 400 emails a day, which I think probably all agree is quite a large workload. I don't think I could probably cope with that many. So what I would say is, if you email them and you haven't heard back from them, ring them up, ring the office up. You'll get through to their staff, and actually building those relationships with the MP staff is really important, because they can be really, really helpful in terms of, you know, often pointing you in other directions of people that can help you, telling you kind of other sort of campaigning tips. So I would say, if you've emailed them and they haven't got back to you, ring them, try and see them in person, keep that pressure up on them. And also, my other kind of big tip was that if you have communication with your MPs, then kind of celebrate that. So put it on social media. You might want to write to, maybe if you have local newspapers or students press about it, write about it in there. And that's a really good way of kind of having that kind of visibly accountable. Obviously double check with them that that's okay, but I think that's a really good way of doing it. And my kind of advice in terms of when you contact MPs and you're thinking about kind of how to structure what you say, whether it's in person or whether it's by email or other ways, I'd say keep it kind of concise. As you said, 400 emails, if you're sending them, 2-3 pages, that's too much probably for them to kind of easily read. But equally, keep it personal. So adding your own lived experiences, your own personal experiences, is a really good way of connecting with the MP and saying why an issue is important to you. Like, lots of groups will send out kind of mass emails, which is a good way, because it means that you have a template if you're not sure how to structure it. But my advice would always be to kind of tailor those letters, because if you, I guess as an MP, if you get 100 letters saying exactly the same thing, you'll respond 100 times with exactly the same response. So we have a kind of brief structure on here. So what is the issue, why it's important to you, why it's important. So it might be because it affects their local area, it might be because it's something they've spoken about before, and then be really specific in what you actually want them to do. I think that's quite important. Other than, don't just say we want your support, be specific. How can they show that they support you? So Sky actually told me about this campaign, because this is one that Sky's old housemate is involved in. So do you want to talk about it, Sky?
Yeah, so my housemate, old housemate and very good friend, is a staff member at Greenwich Students' Union, and they really wanted to raise the issue about fee debt on healthcare related courses, especially as the pandemic was going on. So they wanted to get the issue, a very clear issue, waive the fee debt for students on healthcare related courses on the agenda. And what they did is run a really good campaign. It was called something like Write, Tell, Sign. You can find it on the Greenwich website. It was just very clear, and it started at Greenwich Students' Union, and as you can imagine, blossomed to lots of other students' unions, because loads of them will have the similar problem. So they got thousands of signatures. But yeah, it might be worth checking that out as an idea. I would also just recommend at any point, as Nikki said, keeping communication with MPs short and sweet. And someone earlier asked, what do you do if your MP doesn't get back to you? My advice would always be, think of that friend who always reads your WhatsApp messages, gives you the 2 blue ticks and never replies. What would you do to your friend then? You'd probably text them and be like, hey pal, I can see you reading my text, but you're not replying. Just remind them. If you're getting 400 emails a day, you might miss something. But yeah, just give them a little nudge with an MP.
And I think it's quite, I guess, a kind of point to follow on from that is that, so say you contacted your MP and maybe they haven't given you the response that you want, or they have, but you're looking for other people. Who else can you turn to in Parliament? Where else can you find other allies? So we'll have a little think about that in a moment. But we're thinking about maybe the things that you can ask your MP or a Lord or Baroness to do for you at Parliament. So one of the things that you can ask them to do is ask a question to a government minister. So you can ask questions to government ministers yourself via the kind of government website, but they don't have to respond to you, whereas they do have to respond to the MPs. So these questions can either be oral, so in person, in the House of Commons chamber, and each different government department will have a question time once every 5 to 6 weeks. And those questions tend to be about kind of scrutiny, putting that minister on the spot, and getting answers to questions. All those questions can be written, and these tend to be a little bit more about fact finding. They're also all searchable on the Parliament website. So actually it might be that you can find the answer to your question on there, and you can find the information that you want. You might want them to take a little bit further and hold or speak in a debate. So again, you can have a look on the Parliament website and you can find all the debates that are coming up. Why is that worth doing? Well, both for debates and questions, a minister has to be present, a minister has to respond. So they have to say what they have been doing or what they will do around that issue. So it might be that it raises an issue to the minister's agenda they didn't know that was there before, or at very least they're going to have to go away, them and their kind of civil servants, and research that subject and look into it. Debates are also a good way of kind of raising public awareness if lots of different MPs or Lords and Baronesses take part. And also because members of the public can watch them either online or usually, like coronavirus kind of ignoring it, usually you can go in person for free as well. So they're a good way of raising awareness. So we've got some examples of things that have been asked recently. So House of Lords were having a question around COVID-19 in universities and how this was affecting the lectures that you get, and also about thinking ahead and opening universities in September as well. So those are things you can ask MPs, Lords and Baronesses to do for you. Who else can you get in contact with? How else can you find allies? Well, there's two kind of ways I'm going to speak about. So first is through the House of Lords, and the second is through APPGs, which stands for All Party Parliamentary Groups. So we already mentioned that working with the House of Lords is a really good group of people because they spend a lot of their time looking through legislation. So if that's what you want to try and achieve, they're a good group to work with. And the other reason they're good is that they're experts. So they're already going to know about your issue. Actually, you can probably get them up to speed with it a little bit quicker with some other organisation. And you can search for all of the members of the House of Lords online. So just in the same way that you search for your MP, you can search for members of the House of Lords by experience and interest. And this is a good way of finding people who support your cause. The other good thing about members of the House of Lords is they're not attached to a region or a constituency in the way that MPs are. So you can contact any of them. But often some of them will kind of have links to certain areas. So there might be one for the area where your university is. So they might be particularly interested in that area.
A question came in from Meg, which is, are APPGs happening online? And I've answered saying yes, each APPG works slightly differently, but the APPG for students recently released a report, I believe, on student finance, which was a bit of work they were doing. Each APPG is quite like your student societies. They will operate slightly differently. Some will be more active than others and have different engagement. But yeah, so I would check on the APPG register, which is a list of all your groups, and see what's going on there. But each operates slightly differently.
Yeah, the student one seems quite active, and that inquiry that Sky mentioned, they had lots of witnesses from people who were presidents of different SUs. So I don't know, maybe some of you took part in it, or maybe you know people that did. And they're quite good, as Sky said. They don't have any kind of formal kind of setting within Parliament. They're a bit like clubs or societies, but they're a really good way of finding allies. So just to go back to House of Lords, when I went on the House of Lords website, typed in universities, and this is one of the people that came up. So Baroness Donaghy. She was at one point permanent secretary to the Students' Union, so she might be someone who would be a good ally for you. She's been involved in student unions, and she'll have experience of working with them, knowing the types of challenges, perhaps the types of things that you want to achieve. So she might be someone who would be good for you to contact. So thinking then about things that you can do for yourselves. So we've kind of mentioned ways in which you can find allies, things that you can ask MPs and Lords and Baronesses to do on your behalf. But there are also ways that you can get directly involved with Parliament. You don't necessarily have to kind of go through MPs directly. So the first is by getting involved in select committees. So select committees, there's select committees in both the House of Commons and the House of Lords. But if we just kind of think about the ones in the House of Commons, so each different government department has a select committee attached to it. So these are cross-party, which is really important. MPs from all different political parties, which is a really good thing to get if you want support, because it shows that your issue isn't necessarily a political one. And they check the work of each different government department. So there's a select committee for the Department of Education, and those MPs will choose a topic to do an inquiry into. And when they do that topic, they have an open call for evidence, so written evidence, and these are all put on the Parliament website. And anybody can give evidence to select committees. So we've had kind of some celebrities in the past, like Russell Brand has given evidence before, I think around addiction, I think that was. Recently, if anyone is a fan of The Only Way is Essex, Bobby Norris, he's on there, he gave evidence to select committee around homophobic abuse online. And Katie Price also actually recently gave evidence, again, around online abuse in relation to her son Harvey. But you don't have to be a celebrity to do it. As I said, anybody can give evidence and give your experiences to these select committees. They then will take some people to give evidence in person and produce a report, often outlining different changes that they think there should be on a subject. And the government has to respond to that report, and they have about 2 months to do it. So some inquiries that are open at the moment that actually you might be interested in giving evidence to. So they're tackling online abuse one that I just mentioned. So they are looking for evidence for people's experiences of this and what perhaps could be done to tackle it and improve it for people who've experienced it. They want to find out more about young and novice drivers. So if you kind of recently have passed your driving test, or you've only been driving for a few years, how have you found that experience? Again, what extra support do you think there should be? And then the final one actually is quite an exciting one. So Life Beyond COVID. This is the House of Lords Select Committee. And they are thinking about kind of what life will be like, say, in 5 years' time. How do we think the coronavirus will have impacted you? And they are looking for evidence submitted in like whatever form kind of best suits you. So if you're really arty, you could submit drawings, you could do, I don't know, songs, poetry, and social media posts, videos. They want as wide a range of kind of views as possible. And that's a really important point about select committees, is that, you know, they need your experience. They don't know what it's like for you on the ground unless you tell them. So this is a really exciting committee to get involved in, and you can submit your evidence in whatever way you want. Just as a kind of aside to this as well, if any of you are producing research through your degrees, select committees also, that's a good way to kind of get your research ahead as well, by giving evidence to select committees. I wonder, has anyone ever done it before? Has anybody ever given evidence to a select committee? Did you know about them? You can share your experiences in the chat box if you have. Well, do have a look on the website, have a look at these inquiries, because I think they're a really important way of engaging with Parliament and sharing the experiences that you have.
Meg has said she hasn't, but it sounds good. I would recommend one of the things that you can do, a fun thing for you to do, is go to the Parliament website at some point and type in your Students' Union name. You might realise that they have already given evidence a couple of years ago to a couple of different. There was a big one about student finance a couple of years ago, and loads of students' unions gave in evidence. Edinburgh, Goldsmith, South Bank, all sorts of people, and the couple of presidents came down and gave evidence. So yeah, do have a look at that. And yeah, I've put the link to the House of Lords one there, so you can have a little look at that as well.
And it's a good one, like, to share with your networks as well, and kind of make them aware that these things are going on as well. So final thing I want to talk about with you guys today is petitions. So have any of you ever started, signed, or shared a petition? If you have, share it in the chat box. It might be this one that we have on screen here that you've taken part in. So there's an official Parliament website that you can start your petition on. And
lots of people have, just to let you know, Nikki, lots and lots of yeps.
Good. For this particular petition, or have anyone done any others? Anyone ever started a petition? It's quite interesting. So you might have been following this petition then on the news. So started by Sophie Quinn, who is a third-year student at Liverpool University. And this petition, as we know, it says on there, got over 348,000 signatures. And actually, what the petition's kind of process is, there's a committee behind it, so similar to the select committees. And because this petition got so many signatures, they actually ran an inquiry themselves into it. So they did lots of public engagement around this. I wonder whether any of you took part in any of this public engagement. So they had a thread on the student room where they were asking for people's opinions. They also sent out a survey. I don't know if anyone filled that in. It got 27,000 responses, kind of around what people were feeling about this. And they took evidence, including from Sophie Quinn and Zamzam Abraham, so the president of the NUS. And they have recently produced their report into it. So the kind of outcome of that report, I'm going to read off what it is. So they said, the kind of outcome of the report is they don't think there should be a blanket refund on students' fees, but actually that process to claim your refunds back should be streamlined, and that the government should make money available for those who want to claim a refund, and actually have that money available for the people who do think that they deserve a refund into it. So there's a lot of information on there. If you kind of haven't been following it, do have a look into it. But petitions are really simple. You don't have to be a UK citizen to start a petition. So if you are, say, like an overseas student, as long as you live here in the UK, which you will be doing for your studies, then you have the right to start and sign a petition. And again, the people who kind of work behind the petitions are a really good group of people. They can help you reword your petitions. They can help you kind of get more information out there. So it's a kind of a really easy way to show that a lot of people support your cause if they do. So that's kind of really it from me. I guess to kind of sum up, I suppose the main things I want you to take away from this are the fact that there are lots of different ways to get involved in Parliament. There are lots of different people at Parliament who you can contact and who you can try and get to support your campaign. And I'm sure you know from kind of campaigns that you've run yourselves, it's never just going to be kind of one method. So one petition, one kind of email that will, and your campaign will be a success. There's lots of different things that you will have to do and have to try. But hopefully from this session today, you've got a bit of a sense of some of the things, that avenues that you can go down, some of the routes that you can take to find those people at Parliament, and get involved, because that is the whole point of Parliament. It's there for you. As I said, it only really works. People only really know what you need if you tell them. You know, no politician is a mind reader. They don't know what's important to you unless you let them know. So do get involved. Have a look at the committees pages, have a search for some different members of the House of Lords, the APPGs. There's lots and lots of ways to get involved. So do you have any final questions? Is there anything else you would like to know from the session today that you want to find out about? Well, just while you're thinking, if you do have anything else, just to say that these sessions that myself and Sky provide are completely free. As Sky mentioned, we have outreach officers across the whole of the UK, and so every region has one. So actually, if you kind of like this session today, if you have a group of people who you think would like to find out more, whether it's a kind of basic introduction to Parliament or finding out more about campaigning, you can go on the Parliament website and you can put in an expression of interest. As I said, all those sessions are free, and we're always looking for people to work with and to help kind of find out more about Parliament. So do get in touch and do let us know.
Awesome. And I guess it's some really lovely feedback we got, and I think I should share it. A couple of people saying this is really helpful. Debbie said, I've seen how Parliament is more approachable than I thought. And I have to say, Debbie, I totally agree. So I think I mentioned earlier, I used to be a student union officer, and I had to go to Parliament to lobby on something. And I'd lived in London my whole entire life and never walked in, and I was so nervous, and I thought it was so fancy and like really difficult, and I didn't understand what I was doing. And actually, since working at Parliament, now I realise that we're like the doors are open and we really want you to come and get involved with us. So yeah, I hope when the doors are open, do come in and let us know. If you want sessions for students in your students unions or clubs and societies, you think, let us know. I've got a final question from Benjamin here. My MP is in a relatively safe seat and doesn't really interact with people who aren't his voters. What is the best way to interact with him and make them take notice of our views?
Yeah, I think it is a really hard situation. So a safe seat, and just in case you're not sure, it's one where the MP will have like a massive majority. So it might be like 20,000 more votes than the person who came second. So they're basically definitely going to win. So I think my advice would be, I suppose, just kind of, we kind of already mentioned, kind of keep on top of them. If you can go and see them in person, that's quite impactful, I would say, because it means you can see them kind of there. And I would also say, unless it's a specifically local issue, don't forget that there are other MPs that you can get in contact with. If there's kind of other MPs in the surrounding constituencies, if you have people on your network who live in those constituencies, there's nothing to say that you can't go along with them to a meeting with those MPs, and they might be able to kind of help you work with the MP in your local seat. I don't know if you want to add anything, Sky.
And I'd guess I just think of it like lots of the persuading and influencing you might be doing elsewhere. So in the university or in the college, you might be trying to influence senior leaders. Think of it like that. Find out, what does that MP care about? If they're not responding to you, what is their thing? Lots of MPs will have a couple of different areas. So when you look up your MP, you might find out that they are in APPG. So my old MP was in loads around the fire service. Is there something that you can relate to them? Is there a way that you can persuade them or change their mind? So I would often kind of use a mixture of personal stories. So the elevator pitch that we showed earlier, which is, just imagine you have them for 2 minutes. How are you going to change this person's mind and make them care about what you care about? And often telling your story is a good way, because they can relate to that. So my experience is this. I need your help because. So yeah, do that. James has added, if you're an officer, speak to your staff support about power mapping and how you can influence others to influence the MP. That's a really good addition there, James. Awesome. But yeah, thank you all so much. I'm just going to re-pop in a link to a bit of feedback for us. We'd super appreciate it if you had a second to do that. But we really, really appreciate you taking the time to join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sky. Thank you, Nikki. Brilliant session. For anyone who wants to watch this back or share it with their colleagues and officers, this will be online tomorrow. Please do take a rewatch. You've had a brilliant offer here from from the team to come and run the sessions. Think about how you might fit those into your academic societies, you know, your law courses, your politics courses. You could get a big cohort of students together and actually get them working out how to engage with Parliament. It'd be brilliant. Media courses as well. Yep. So do think about it. Take up the offer. It's a really good offer. And when things become a little less restricted, go and visit Parliament. It's an amazing space to be in. Get your MP to take you on a walk around. They'll talk to you about all the intricacies of the design of the building, and you can look at the Scottish corridor and the Welsh corridor, and where the only assassination in Parliament has ever taken place. And there's a little tile there. It's brilliant. Lots and lots of great stuff. Thank you so much again, Sky. Thank you, Nikki. You're always stars, and you're always welcome to come back. Thanks, everyone, and have a great rest of your conference. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.